All right. Let's get fired up here.
Maximum freedom. Read.
Stay on target.
Maximum freedom.
Stay on target.
Maximum freedom. Read Rothbard.
Hello and welcome to the next episode of the Actual Anarchy podcast, and happy Father's Day, everyone. This is our Father's Day special. It's going to be episode number 27, and we're going to talk about Finding Nemo. And I want to say hello to my friend Robert, co-host. How you doing?
Hey, buddy. I'm doing great. I'm excited to do this Disney cartoon movie with you. We had all kinds of options to do for Father's Day specials. We were looking at like Field of Dreams, Aliens, Transformers, all kinds of great Father's Day material that you were like, no.
Classics.
I got somebody that wants to talk about this Disney cartoon movie. So we're going to do it. And it is a very father going above and beyond type movie. So it'll be good.
Yeah, so a Disney movie from a Rothbardian Anarcho-capitalist perspective. That's what we do here. And our special guest is Jeremiah Martin, who we met through the Tom Woods group. He's a supporting listener of Tom Woods, and we've been sharing content and liking and chatting and whatnot for a while now. And he was a big fan of Finding Nemo. We found this out in a thread in the Tom Woods group where Tom had mentioned in the show that he does not enjoy the character Crush. So, Jeremiah, how you doing? You want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure, yeah. I'm doing good. It's good to be on the show. There was Thaddeus Russell was on the Tom Woods show, and they were talking about the whole idea of the Protestant work ethic, which Thaddeus was calling the Puritan work ethic, interestingly. But they were talking about the contrast between that and being like a beach bum type dude who doesn't work hard and that kind of thing. And Tom was saying that that sort of personality it was exemplified by Crush and the sea turtle in Finding Nemo. And Tom is a notorious workaholic, or was. He talks about that occasionally. And so that whole personality of just, not wanting to work.
Glamorizing laziness or something?
Right, yeah. He feels like you might as well, I think what his actual phrase was, you might as well be born a lizard if that's how you're going to live your life. And Thaddeus was saying, actually, that's kind of perfect, like that kind of being able to live life that way. And so anyway, it became this big thing in the group where people were posting turtle memes, and it got kind of weird. People were putting Tom's face on a turtle and stuff like that. So
yeah, guilty as charged.
Yeah. He was legitimately creeped out by it, I think. So anyway, and I suggested to Dan that we should talk about Finding Nemo on here because it all fits together. You guys talk about movies and anarchy, and we got hooked up through the Tom Woods group, so it makes sense. And
absolutely.
Always been one of my favorite movies. So yeah.
Yeah. So another character. I was just going to say another character that is Crush-like is Lebowski in The Big Lebowski. He's kind of the
dude. Yeah.
Yeah. The dude, the same way there. But yeah, go ahead, Robert.
No, I was just going to say, why don't you talk about maybe how you got into the freedom stuff?
Oh, me?
Yeah, buddy.
Well, my libertarian conversion story.
Yeah.
So it goes back to Alex Jones, actually. My brother used to listen to him quite a bit, like probably 10, 11 years ago, and Alex Jones had been talking about this guy Ron Paul quite a bit, and it must have been, that would have been for the 2008 campaign, and so my brother started talking to me about this guy who wanted to he wanted a gold standard and wanted to abolish the IRS and all this stuff, and I was just like, this guy sounds like a total nutcase. Like, what are you talking about? And so my brother, thankfully, was persistent and kind of beating me over the head with this stuff, and I was like, okay. And so I actually started watching some videos of Ron Paul, and it's just like, it just clicked. Like, I don't know how anybody could, watch pretty much any one of his segments that he's done on TV or his speeches or whatnot, and not just, I don't know, respect the guy. Like, everything he says makes sense. Like, even if you don't necessarily have the same philosophy or whatever, it was just that whole, it was like, this guy's a politician, like, really? And this is the way he talks? Like, so I was just captivated by that. So, and of course the whole Giuliani confrontation, really solidified my view of, or not necessarily solidified, but, it was just like a mind-blowing moment in terms of like the way I thought about foreign policy, just the way that he could put it in such simple terms and say, look, they hate us because we're over there. And that was just a light bulb moment for me. And so, I was I didn't really start to kind of delve into the intellectual stuff and really reading books and stuff until maybe like within the last couple of years. But I've basically been a libertarian for 11 years or so. I would say I probably wasn't an ANCAP until like last year. So I probably actually took longer to make that jump than most of the people I know of who are.
What were you kind of raised as? I mean, were you more of a lefty or a righty?
Not really either. I probably would have just been like the most like moderate person ever. Like, because I think like my parents were kind of, I mean, they voted for Bill Clinton both times, I think, and like, but then my dad ended up voting for like Bush and McCain and stuff. And so it was kind of like they were, I guess basically they're moderates. And I mean, he even voted like this time, my dad, he's not a libertarian by any means, but he, in this last election, he just got fed up with everything. And he was like, I'm going to vote for Jill Stein. And so it kind of gives you an idea of like kind of his thinking. Like he doesn't really have, he doesn't have like a staunch ideology, really. He's kind of, him and my mom both to some extent, kind of just voted for
kind of swing voters.
Yeah, basically. So it's kind of interesting because I think I haven't heard a lot of, like when I hear these like libertarian conversion stories or whatever, I don't often hear that kind of like a background. They're like, oh, we were like super conservative or we were super liberal or whatever. But for me, it was just like the middle of the road. And that's probably exactly what I would have been, is just like very like, well, some of this over here makes sense and some of that makes sense. And I could see myself like I probably could have, if I hadn't been like actually like fully convinced of like Austrian economics and anarchism and all that, I could see myself being like gung-ho about like Gary Johnson, you know what I mean? Because by the time like we got to that point, he was like kind of positing himself as that type of candidate. Of course, now I realize how milquetoast that kind of view is.
Right.
But
right in the middle of the two parties. Yeah, that's Gary Johnson. Could you point to
any one thing that turned you full on ANCAP, or just a collection of knowledge and arguments and whatnot?
It was reading Rothbard, man. That was what did it.
Very good.
Nobody better. Yeah.
Very nice.
Now, was that a plug for our site, or which book were you reading? You were reading our site.
No, I read the Rothbard Reader, which is put together by Joe Salerno and Roger McCaffrey. They did a really good job with that thing. So that was kind of where I was like, I'm gonna delve into his stuff, and so I read that, and I've read a little bit of other stuff here and there. I haven't tackled any of the big treatises yet. But.
And did you bring your brother along on your journey, or is he still like a minarchist style?
Kinda. He's more apolitical, actually, I would say, but I don't think he would like fight me on any particular issue. He'd probably be like, yeah, you're pretty much right about that. So
yeah. Right on.
Still turning the frogs gay.
And we're going to talk about one of your favorite movies of all time. Now, can you really point to any one thing that makes this movie hit you right in the feels so hard? Are you a father and you've got a bunch of kids and they all died by a barracuda attack, or what?
I have no
was
children. I have no children, but I think Marlin is definitely admirable in a lot of ways. I can't pick one thing really, because it's one of those movies that just has so many. It does so many things right that it's really hard to pinpoint one thing. Part of it is that I've always loved animated films, particularly computer animated films. Ever since I first saw Toy Story, I actually saw it. My parents surprised me with it. I don't remember what we were doing, but we just randomly went to the theater, and they're like, "We're seeing Toy Story," and I was like, "Sweet." And so I've just loved computer animated movies since then, and I've seen almost every Pixar movie. But yeah, Finding Nemo is still my favorite. I think. Well, there's so many things. Let's just start with the way it looks. I mean,
okay.
I don't think there's any movie. I mean, I can't think of another movie that is more beautiful. Like, just the way that, just the colors and how they were able to replicate, I guess an idealized version, of what the sea looks like, what underwater looks like, and so it's just a gorgeous film. I mean, really, I don't think animation has gotten much better than that. I mean, like, I saw Finding Dory last year, and I didn't think that it didn't really seem like the animation was any better. So I think it's. I mean, I probably would notice some things, like if I was more like steeped in that, world, and I knew kind of what details to look for. But it seems to me that it just still it holds up really well. It still looks incredible.
I mean, I watched it like the other day, and it still looks like a modern movie for sure, even though it's now 14 years old.
Mm-hmm. Well, you guys have to watch it on a 4K TV with OLED, the whole ultra high def, and then you'd see a difference, I think. But
yeah, I could see that. I do have the Blu-ray, and the Blu-ray looks amazing, so I can't even imagine. I'm sure that the thing about the higher resolution you go, it does sort of point out flaws in older films. Like, I was watching Shrek on Blu-ray and on one of those like 4K type TVs or whatever, and I could definitely see, some signs of age on it.
Do you see like jaggies, or what do you see?
It's hard to describe. It's like something about the surfaces. They look sort of plastic.
That's one of the genius things about Toy Story, is when they knew their limitations. They're like,
exactly.
Well, we can't replicate perfectly human looks, so we're going to make toys that, So yeah, that movie still holds up for that fact.
Right. Yeah.
So Daniel, you want to get into the Google stuff about this movie?
Let's do it. So, Finding Nemo, 2003 adventure comedy, father looking for his lost son, 1 hour and 41 minutes long, super reviewed, 5 out of 5 on Amazon, 95% of Google users approve. I don't see the Rotten Tomatoes thing, but I'm sure it's good. But
Rotten Tomatoes is 90, or it's 99 for critics, 86 for audiences.
Oh, I'm used to seeing that the other way around. Usually the audience is better than the critics. Interesting. Mm-hmm. So Google says that Marlin, played by Albert Brooks, is a clownfish. He's overly cautious with his son Nemo, played by Alexander Gould, who has a foreshortened fin. So like the little, what does he call it? His lucky fin? Special fin?
Lucky fin.
Lucky fin. When Nemo swims too close to the surface to prove himself, he is caught by a diver, and horrified Marlin must set out to find him. A blue reef fish named Dory, played by Ellen DeGeneres, who has a really, really short memory, joins Marlin and complicates the encounters with sharks, jellyfish, and a host of ocean dangers. Meanwhile, Nemo plots his escape from a dentist's fish tank. And that's the description.
That's pretty much it. I mean, for a brief description, I can't point to too many things wrong. Anything, really.
I think the wording's a little awkward with too close to the surface to prove himself. I think I would have worded it, he goes to the boat.
Yeah.
Or to touch the butt is what they call it, right?
Touching the butts.
Yeah, so let's get into some scenes here, Robert. You want to kick us off there?
Sure. So the very first scene, you've got Marlin, and I forget his wife's name because she's only in it so briefly.
Coral.
Okay. And they're talking about their house and their oceanfront property that they got, and how so many clownfish wanted this anemone, but he was such a stud that he was able to get it for her, and she was super pleased. And they're looking at their trove of eggs, and then here comes a barracudas, and they had to cut away because I can't imagine some barracuda is just like rooting into this coral to eat these fish roe. But okay, I mean, whatever, it's a movie. So he wakes up and he finds just one egg left over, and that's how it starts, really. I think it's funny that the movie wouldn't exist if the barracuda attack didn't happen, because, if he's got 400 kids to take care of and Nemo takes off across the ocean, he's not going to go chase after him because he's got 400 other kids to take care of. And if he's got 400 kids to take care of, they're probably not getting into the logistics of going to this weird school where 400 aren't going to fit on this ray, and just, all the things that wouldn't work if the kids had survived. So they had to die, poor kids.
Well, plus that sets up the whole plot, because it gives impetus to Marlin's paranoia and overprotectiveness and anxiety and all of that.
Right.
Yeah,
and they also name the children before they're born, which is terribly bad luck. I don't know if anybody noticed that, but nobody does that.
Yeah, he named half Marlin Jr. and the other half Coral Jr., but Coral said that she liked the name Nemo, so he says, all right, we'll name one of them Nemo.
Right. Mm-hmm. So then we fast forward to when Nemo is a little kid and he's going to his first day of school, and Helicopter Dad is super protective and doesn't want to see him go, and he's worried about him the whole time and kind of shadows him as he goes off to play with his friends out at the edge of the reef. And while he's arguing with the teacher, little Nemo is upset and fed up with Dad being Mr. Helicopter, and he's going to prove that he can actually, he's a big fish and he can take care of himself, sort of, and his little fish fin isn't a big liability, and he can do it. And he gets caught by some humans. Now, I mean, everybody watching this is probably just like, well, yeah, I mean, humans catch fish. But are we going to play along with these fish having self-ownership? Because this is kind of what we do. So is this a kidnapping that we're dealing with, Daniel? Or is just this humans that don't recognize these sentient creatures and therefore is perfectly fine?
Yeah, I'm going to go
with recognize. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. Either one. Both of you answer.
At the same time. 1, 2, 3, go. Go ahead, Jeremiah. You're our guest. Let's get your take on it, and then I'll agree with you probably. That's generally what we do here.
Yep.
I would say they definitely don't recognize the sentience of the fish. So from that perspective, yeah, it doesn't really make sense to say that they're kidnapping the fish.
Okay.
Yeah,
Daniel?
from the fisheye view, they among themselves see that they're sentient, but the humans in the movie do not.
So you don't see the kidnapping as a kidnapping, more of just a fisherman, obviously not a fisherman, but imagine fisherman, catching some food. And
well, he was catching him for going in the tank as not as food, but as a pet.
Whatever, any kind of value.
Right.
As a resource, he's collecting a resource for its value.
Right, for satisfying some desire that he had, and I believe he wanted to give it to his niece. Is that right? Darla is her name, and she ends up killing every pet she's ever had.
Well, it's funny. Later on in the movie, the human dentist guy, there's a line where he says that he saved the fish, like he rescued the fish,
right?
Because he was, quote, struggling for life out in the reef.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just kind of like, so that he's feeling like he's doing a good thing by rescuing this fish, where the fish feels this massive tragedy, this other way, the completely other way, like he's been kidnapped and imprisoned.
Yeah, it's very ironic.
So I just watched a movie called Rabbit Proof Fence, where it's all about the Australians. Not too much get into it, but there are these Australian bureaucrats who kidnap these Aborigine girls, and put them in this like Christian school for their own good. They kept the whole movie. They were completely convinced that they were rescuing these people from their own homes and rescuing them from their lives and their families so that they could, integrate into Australian society or whatever. And Just the idea that if you don't recognize the sentience and the humanity and the self-ownership of others, you're more likely to treat them as if they are not. And if you don't see them as having rights, you're more likely to mistreat them. So I think it plays out in both of these movies, strangely enough.
Well, we see it every day in news media and demonizing people in war and dehumanizing them. We saw it with slavery and other things where whatever the accepted perception of others was at the time, it gave them an excuse to not have rights or not recognize the rights of others.
Right, like some court says that they're 3/5 of a human being, so then they don't actually have rights.
Right, but that's also government, everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Right, baby.
Everyone who says the government is the solution to things, if you rewind the tape, government was usually behind most of the ills of the world that you see. But not to sidetrack us too much, I want to rewind us a little bit into the overprotective nature of Marlon, because Marlon had like this traumatic experience, lost 99.9% of his kids, 99.44% of his kids, and he was very, very overprotective of his one last surviving fish. So he had a very high value in this one fish. That was the point you were alluding to earlier. And when he sends him off to school for the first day, he's of course taking him to the school. Like, he's not going to let him out of his sight. And there's one scene where he says, wait right here, there's traffic. And they wait until there's a pause in the traffic. And this is something we do with our kids because we're on a relatively busy road, at least for the neighborhood that we live in. And we don't have a fence, so we're very aware of the road. We make sure the kids are aware of the road. And we make sure that they know that they need to look both ways and they need to listen and for themselves. Like, they can't just expect that because I decided to go that it's okay for them to go. And I've even told them this story, and I think I mentioned it on one of our shows as the Read Rothbard podcast. But if you're ever in New York City, Jeremiah, if you've been there, you might know what I'm talking about. There are many people walking constantly, and they cross whenever there's no cars. They don't really follow the walk signals and the lights and things like that. But there's also so many tourists there. And you get a lot of this kind of lemmings thing going on where if the person in front of you starts walking, many people will just start walking as well. But some of the native New Yorkers, they're used to the traffic and the speed of the cars, or they kind of know what to expect. So they might be timing the crossing based on their experience versus someone else who's behind them will assume because the person in front of them is going that now it's safe for them to go when the person in front of them might be timing it just make it. Mm-hmm. And I saw so many near accidents, so many near misses. It's a weird way of saying things. So many near hits, but proper, I guess the way you say near miss
is, I've always hated that. It doesn't sound right.
But I do wonder how many people do get hit, because it seems to be that there's this social communication going that if someone else is going in front of you, then it's okay for you to go, when really they're judging it based on their particular situation. So with our kids, we train them, much like Captain Fantastic, to look for themselves, make sure that it's safe for you in your judgment, not because someone else is going.
Yeah.
For sure, Daniel. Good job.
All right, so that's our PSA for today. The other...
So that scene really hit you in the feels then?
Well, it reminded me of my kids and what we do with them and my time in New York, because I went there 4 or 5 times for trips just to be there and try out the food and check out the sights. I think I almost got hit a few times before I figured this out.
Right. All right, so the next note you have is interesting because I kind of had the same thought when I was watching this, and I want to see if our guest take on this. So Daniel made a note that Marlon is, all crazed. He's super worried. Nemo just got kidnapped or whatever, and he's off trying to find, which way the boat went and whatever. And he bumps into Dory, and Dory's like, "Oh yeah, I saw the boat. Went over this way. Come on, follow me." And of course, we find out that Dory has, short-term memory loss. And so she looks back behind her and sees Marlon following her, and she's like, "Why is this fish chasing me?" And so she kind of runs, and she tells him not to stop following me and whatnot. Now, Daniel wrote, can she consent if she forgets shortly afterwards? So this is like a moral question. Daniel, do you want to elaborate on this question?
Yeah, so she has a condition that makes her forget things, but in her lucid moment, she had agreed to help him, and that her and him traveling together was an okay thing. And you can, of course, extrapolate this to many situations. But if she then forgets that she said, yeah, this is okay, and now in her state of mind, she's like, no, don't follow me, is she now, telling him, like, what is the correct response? Like, if there's like this mental condition where she did offer consent, but now she doesn't recall offering the consent, it's kind of a weird question, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right, like, do you have to remind her that she did consent, or do you have to respect her new position that, no, I don't consent?
Well, I think you can do both. You can respect the fact that she doesn't remember. I think you have to. I mean, you can't just...
You can't just try and convince her, oh, no, you did, because she won't remember that.
Yeah, I mean, you can say that, but I think you definitely don't just keep following her even if she tells you not to. You have to just be like, well, she forgot. Now she doesn't want me to. What's relevant, I think, is what is the most recent response, or the most whether she consented most recently or not.
So right. to continue the movie, he would just have to Groundhog Day her every time and be like, okay, you forgot. All right, let me try to convince you again. All right, now you consent. All right, let's travel 10 more feet. And then she forgets. It's no way to make it across the ocean.
No, he would quickly dump her. He'd be like, no, I'm just going to go on my own. This is not worth it. I'm losing time.
But she almost does. But then those sardines or whatever they are, that make the shapes to cheer her up, they tell him which way to go based on the information she got off of that mask. And so then they're kind of off to the races again.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So shortly after this part where she's decided to help him and then forgets and decides to help him, they run into the sharks. And there was a note I have in here that's kind of funny. At first, they think they're going to be eaten by these sharks, but the sharks are having like an AA meeting for not eating fish, and they've gone a couple of days or a couple of weeks without eating fish. But then one of the sharks says, in relation to Nemo gone missing and Marlin trying to find him, they make a note that says, there's probably humans. They think they own everything. Probably American.
Right.
And I thought that was kind of an interesting, almost a dig at private property and Americans in general, like almost a elitist kind of thing to say, like, oh, you're not into the kumbaya, like, we're all part of the one world, everyone collectively owns everything together, or ownership is evil or something.
Right. No, I would agree with that. I think it was a slight dig, or not so subtle dig, against capitalism and private property for sure. Yeah, I rolled my eyes heavily at that one.
I never noticed that. Yeah, that's a good point.
But right before that, they run into the shark, and of course they're little fish, and they're running into this giant toothed shark. And he invites them to this party, and they're like, no, I don't want to go. And he just kind of like picks them up and carries them with him. And he's like, oh no, I insist. Come on, you're going.
Mm-hmm.
So that felt very much like a kidnapping to me.
It was exactly like kidnapping. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, good. Daniel?
Yeah,
I think intent might play a role in whether something's a kidnapping. It's a matter of perspective. Like, you might have just been a over-exuberant host wanting to entertain. Because I've run into people like that. No, come in for a drink. Oh, come over to this thing. Come over. And they sort of guilt you into it or insist and kind of drag you a little bit. And I wouldn't consider that necessarily kidnapping. Now, the shark may have an ulterior motive because he does eat fish, and he's trying not to. And as soon as he smells blood, then his natural instincts take over, and he starts chasing him and tries to kill them. So it would certainly, to the fish's perspective, if we're buying into the whole they have a consciousness and understanding, then they would know that it's a risk to go with this guy and not wanting to go with him for a good reason and being taken. I guess that would, in their minds, be a bit of a kidnapping.
Right. I mean, your initial defense was using examples where you know the people. Whereas in this movie, not only are they prey talking to a predator, they're also talking to a predator they've met for the very first time. And not only that, the shark picks them up and puts them on his like fins and carries them with him as he's go, oh no, you're coming. So for me, it was very much a kidnapping.
I totally agree with that analysis. This big scary shark just comes up out of nowhere, and they're absolutely terrified, and he just literally grabs them. Like, that's good. What's way beyond just a boisterous host or whatever, because it wouldn't have mattered how much they had protested. He would have just grabbed them. So.
Right.
But do you think that he would have gotten violent with them? Like, he did grab them, but not to harm them. Right. Not to harm them.
But they don't know that.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So that's where the perspective kind of comes into play, and the nature of the it's like you were saying, the prey and the predator. Like, they have an expectation that the shark is going to likely eat them.
Right, because this is the ridiculous scenario, right? I mean, he's a shark that doesn't eat fish. So what exactly does he eat then? I mean, he's like, what is in this weird world? How is he surviving?
Yeah.
So what are the odds you're gonna in the entire ocean you're gonna run into the one shark that's a vegetarian or whatever?
Coraltarian.
Right, whatever he happens to eat.
With the interventions.
Right, I mean, 99.999% of the time, they're very much justified in saying, no, I don't want to go to your party.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it reminds me of I think it's a Thomas Sowell quote or maybe a Walter Williams, but he says, if I see a tiger, I'm not going to go up and ask the tiger, hey, are you a nice tiger?
Right, exactly.
No, I'm going to go with the nature of a tiger and be wary and be, keep my distance. So.
Right. And following in the father theme, they also mention the fact that the big shark's name is Bruce and that he never knew his father. And in fact, they actually mention it twice, and it's kind of a joke. But yeah, it's very father-themed, this movie.
Yeah.
Okay. So then we get a scene with Nemo trapped in the tank with the other prisoners. I don't really have much for notes on this other than that the pelican comes and they're like all checking out what the dentist does. And the pelican kind of says, oh, hi. Well, sorry if I took a nip at you, but birds got to eat. So, there's one guy that understands how it works.
Yeah, there was one little kind of funny thing in the commentary on the DVD. All of the dentistry terminology that they use, because these fish in this tank constantly, all they basically have to do is to watch him do his work, and they basically are experts. Yeah, they're experts on all the dentist terminology and stuff. And the guy who wrote that actually did a bunch of research and made sure that everything that he included in there was legit. So that, like, if a dentist was watching the movie, they would have, like, a private chuckle knowing that it was all actually accurate.
I appreciate that. That's good effort on the part of the writer, for sure.
Yep.
So Nemo's swimming around in the little tank, and he gets sucked up into this tube, and everybody's, like, freaking out. And Gil, this kind of, like, grizzled ex-ocean fish, nobody help him. Yeah, played by Willem Dafoe. Basically says, no, you can do it. You can do it on your own. So it's a really good kind of like self-empowerment type of message there, that you don't necessarily always have to rely on other people. You can have your own strength. Yeah,
that's a major theme. Nemo learning how to fend for himself, and Marlin having to learn that he has to let Nemo do that. There's a lot of little things. By the way, just as a little aside, Gil is the most anarchist character, so I love him. But there's a bunch of little, just kind of as general things that I love about the movie. There's a lot of these little things in the screenplay that kind of, I'm not sure what the word for it is, but in a screenplay when, like, there's like a seed that's planted, or like something is mentioned and then like it comes to fruition later, or it's like referenced again later in some way.
Foreshadowing.
Like a callback. Yep, foreshadowing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, foreshadowing. Yeah. I guess it's just foreshadowing.
Or a
I
callback.
feel like there's something else. Yeah, maybe that too, callback. But there's one good one where Gil teaches, because the dentist goes to scoop Nemo out to give him to his niece. And Gil jumps up into the net and starts swimming down. He tells everybody, get in and swim down. And so they all get in and swim down, and he pulls the net out of the dentist's hand. Well, that same thing happens later. Nemo, when those fishermen are, this is after they get out of the, Nemo, he gets flushed down like the little sink by the dentist chair or whatever, I think, and then the pelican helps Dory and Marlin get out, and the rest of the fish get out in plastic bags or whatever. But anyway, after that happens, Dory and Marlin and Nemo all find each other again, and there's a fishing boat, and they're bringing in this huge amount of whatever this type of fish is, and so and Dory gets trapped up with them, and so Nemo he's like, Dad, I know what to do to save these fish. So he gets in there and tells them, swim down. He gets them all swimming down, and they break the boom off of the boat. So it's like this more like a larger scale version of something that had happened earlier. And I love stuff like that in screenplays because it's just like it ties everything together really nicely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it shows where it shows where he learned that from.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, another note regarding Nemo having to figure it out on his own on how to get unstuck and rely on his own abilities is that a lot of it's to do to mindset. Like if you don't think you can do something, or if you know that somebody is there to help you, or whatever, then even if you don't think that it's affecting your performance, like what you're actually able to do, it really is. Like when Marlin first starts chasing the boat, he's swimming and swimming and swimming and swimming, and probably going well beyond whatever his original thought of how fast or how far he could swim, but he knew that he was going to try to save his last remaining child, and so he pushed himself beyond his physical limits. And I think that's a similar thing with Nemo figuring out how to get out of the tube by himself as well. And I think that's what Gil was trying to show him is, you can do it. You're going to use this as a learning experience because it'll make you tougher, stronger. Sort of like in Star Trek Beyond, where Kroll was saying, struggle makes you stronger. I think in a certain way, you learn from trial and error, and you learn from your mistakes, and you build on your successes. And I think that that's sort of part of the message of this part of the scene. Because similar to another callback, later on when they are trying to escape the tank, Nemo has to go up that tube again, but willingly, to try to get a pebble into the little fan to make the aquarium get super dirty. So then the dentist would have to clean it, take the fish out, put them in the bags, and then they could roll across the street. That was their Alcatraz escape plan.
Right. But because Nemo had the motivation. At first, when they first have him do it, when Gil has him try it, he doesn't necessarily have the motivation to do it, and he's kind of scared of doing it for the first time. But then when he finds out that his dad is in Sydney and he just needs to get out of there, then all of a sudden he's like, oh, well, I just got to do this and this and this, and I'm going to do it. And yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they call him shark bait after the initiation. Do you want to talk about the initiation a little bit, just the concept of initiation, and go from there? Let's talk about that scene a little bit.
Sure. So he's in the tank, and there's like a variety of tropical fish in this tank. And he's new, obviously, and so they want to initiate him into their club. And so what that is he has to pass through the Ring of Fire, which is just the toy volcano in the place, but they have the actual control to be able to turn it up so that a bunch of bubbles and whatnot shoot up out of it. But they're acting kind of like, scary, and like this is a serious thing, and oh my goodness, and once you do this, you'll be one of us, and that sort of thing. Yeah,
they're all culty and chanting and whatnot.
Right, and then once he does it, and it's a big nothing. It's a big lead up to nothing, right? And it's kind of a joke that it's all scary, and then he just pops right over it. Everything's fine, and then they're like, "Yay, you're one of us." He wasn't really given an option, but I think he had an option. He could have opted out of doing it. But in general, I have absolutely zero problem with groups having initiation rituals or any kind of requirements to join a group. I mean, you don't have rights to be in a group. I always find it stupid and disgusting when, say, like Like there's the Masters, I think it's the Masters in golf, and there aren't, it's all just a bunch of white old men. And I think a couple of women like sued them to be able to allow these women to entry, so they're going to use the violent arm of government to force them to allow them. And there's absolutely zero things stopping these women or anybody else that wants to play golf from starting up their own club that allows, just a women's golf club or whatever. I think it's perfectly fine. I think people should be able to voluntarily associate with who they want to associate with, and to exclude people who they want to exclude. Like I think any group I would ever want to be in wouldn't involve politicians, and I just absolutely out of the gate. I don't care who you are. I'm just going to exclude you. I mean, unless you're maybe like a Ron Paul type that's just going in there to expose the system. But yeah, I absolutely have no problems with it, other than unless he was like forced to do it. But I didn't feel like he was forced to do it. Did you?
So Robert, let me ask you this related question. So Memorial Day was just a few weeks ago, and apparently Black Lives Matter had their own black-only Memorial Day, and they were being very exclusionary. And I think they were on Tucker Carlson talking about it. And Tucker was saying, isn't this the very type of thing that you're supposed to be fighting against? Like you're exhibiting racism in an attempt to fight racism or to denounce racism.
Right.
And I see that point that Tucker's making, but I tend to agree with you. Like if they want to have a blacks only whatever, pizza party, Memorial Day parade, barbecue, whatever, they should be able to do that. Though I do agree that it is a bit hypocritical of them to claim that they're not being racist, because they definitely are.
Sure. Yeah. The left likes to treat like racism as like the ultimate sin. It's basically people having their own in-group preferences and their own preferences. And yeah, it's not the most evil thing in the world to want to be around whoever you choose to want to be around with. It is racist, but to exclude people based on their race, sure, of course it is. But it's not wrong and not immoral for them to do so.
Yeah, and I'm with you. I'm thinking it's more the content of the character. Like if somebody is a politician, then you know that the content of their character is not good. What's Congress's approval rating? Like everyone hates politicians except for when it's election time, then they're all going to clamor, or, based on their pseudo-ideology, they're all going to say, oh, my person's the greatest person ever, and your person is pure evil, the devil, Hitler himself, until they're actually in the job and doing the job, and no one's satisfied with what they're doing.
Right. As Anarchy is. What do you think, Jeremiah?
Yeah, and I completely agree with all that. I'm all for voluntary association, and it's exasperating to see how frequently you see people freaking out over stuff that just isn't that big a deal. Like I get fired up and upset over, people being bombed and murdered, because that's like really bad. But like
right.
Somebody not wanting to associate with somebody, like, why do I care? Like,
yeah,
why is that this big deal?
Right? Or somebody says a bad word or called somebody a name or something. It's like, can we be adults here?
Yeah, worst person ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that reminds me, Jeremiah, of something you said maybe in the pre-show, but maybe earlier in this show that, oh man, what was it?
You blew it, Daniel.
I did blow it. At least I can edit this out, or will I?
Don't do it. Leave it.
All right, now remind me.
There was basically Jeremiah was saying that Gil was the most anarchist fish, and it's true.
He's black and gold.
Yeah, he's black and gold. Or no, he's not. Is he blue? I thought he was blue.
Well, the type of fish he is comes in black and gold and white. He's a Moorish idol fish.
I see, but there is a goldfish in the thing, and he's like obsessed with the treasure chest that shoots bubbles up, and he's like, bubbles, 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 my bubbles. And Gil says, fish aren't meant to be in a box. It does things to your head. So yeah, he's very much, I'm a prisoner. I need to escape and get out into the open ocean, because he is a former ocean fish, whereas everybody else besides Nemo was born and raised in captivity.
Right.
Yes. So let's see. I don't really have many notes for, they get swallowed by this giant whale. We find out that she can speak whale, and then there's a whole bit where Marlin really has to learn to let go and kind of trust that things are going to be okay because he's just so upset. And it's kind of a metaphor for letting Nemo go and let him be himself as opposed to being this helicopter parent where he just has to let go of this tongue where the whale is telling them that, okay, it's okay, I'm going to shoot you out of my blowhole. Then then they meet Crush, Mr. Woods'
Nemesis,
where he's just they're like a pack of sea turtles, and they're just chilling out in the current, some kind of current, South Australian current or something like that. And then Marlin is upset because in the movie, at some point, he makes a promise to Nemo, which is this weird promise, and I'm glad they address it. He goes, I promised him that nothing would ever happen to him. And Dory goes, well, that's a weird thing to promise, because if nothing ever happens to him, then nothing's ever going to happen to him. That's just the most bizarre thing ever.
I like that.
So, not only is it a ridiculous thing to promise, of course things are going to happen to you, but they should happen to you. It's part of what life is about.
Right.
Yeah, it's how you learn and get stronger and smarter and faster and all those other good things through experience, trial and error, like we were saying earlier.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, you'd just be this coddled, sheltered creature that doesn't know anything about life, and you would go through life completely protected and not have any understanding and not really truly live, right?
Yeah. Now, there's something I do remember that Jeremiah said in the pre-show, and that was that there was a contrast in the relationship between Marlin and Nemo and Crush and Squirt. So, Jeremiah, you want to go through that a little bit?
Oh, yeah. So, Marlin and Crush are very much foils to each other, and you see it more. I've noticed it more and more the more I watch the movie about how basically every line that Crush says is kind of calculated to be like pushback against Marlin's conceptions of the world and his assumptions and just his idiosyncrasies and things. He's just the totally opposite type of person. He's very, and there's a scene even where Squirt, Crush's little kid, falls out of the current, and he's like by himself, and he has to try and get back in. And Crush is like, let's just see what he does. And Marlin's reaction is like, oh my God, and it's just totally different. Like, it's just such a metaphor for, it's just like there's all these things that Marlin is going through. The whole movie is just constantly like being into his head, like, let your son, live his life. And he needed that. He needed all of this, confluence of factors to finally be like, okay, I guess I can, loosen the leash a little bit.
And as much as Tom doesn't like Crush, I didn't mind his parenting style. I mean, it was more buddy-buddy with his son, but he was also training him. He was also saying, all right, make sure you got an exit partner, an exit buddy, make sure you do a roll or whatever. So he's teaching the proper skills to be able to encounter whatever the experience is going to be, but in a relatively safe manner, versus Marlin's approach, which was, let's just avoid it.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, there's one point where Squirt falls out of the current, and Marlin freaks out, but Crush is like, no, let's just hang back, see what happens, see how he does, see what happens, see what he does, and he gets back into the current, all fine.
Yep.
Like Jeremiah just talked about.
Right. You've got 3 nice little bits here, and that's the end of our notes. You've got the Aquascum 2003 free market providing a solution to a problem, which is true. I mean, it's they were all, ooh, nice.
Scans them. It's like, this tank is dirty. Prepare for laser cleaning.
Right. And when they're escaping from the dentist and Dory's looking for which way Marlin went, and she'd been reunited with Nemo at that point, and they come across some crabs who are feeding, and they go, which way did he go? And the crab's like, you can't make me tell you. And so she picks up crab and then offers him to seagulls to be eaten. And you have in here, is that an NAP violation? And I would say yes, very much it is. That is a threat of murder or a threat of death, or else you will tell me.
Right, yeah, because the crabs are doing their own thing, and it's like, well, who's going to make me? And in a way, that's almost a escalation. It's like, okay, I'm challenging you now to make me.
Yeah.
Yeah, but would you say that he's not at fault. Just because you say make me doesn't mean that person has to go and make you. I mean, they still have self-ownership.
Right, though my daughters, they do this to each other. They'll say, kid one will say to kid two, all right, now hit me or push me or, do whatever, so that then kid one can then respond to whatever kid two has aggressed upon them. But it's like goading them into it. Like, all right, I know I can't hit you, kid two, but if I tell you hit me, then I can hit you.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, it seems like a violation of contract. Like, once you say, go ahead and hit me, you're inviting them to hit you. But then when you turn around and hit them, then that seems like you're violating the contract, the terms of the contract, because the terms of the contract seem to be that you were going to hit me, and then that was going to be the end of it.
Yeah, and it's not like an official boxing match type thing, because of course both agree to hit each other, right? I mean, this is a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old deciding how can I get away with hitting my sister when my parents keep talking about the NAP and Murray Rothbard to me.
Poor kids.
So what's your parenting strategy then? Let them work it out. What do you do?
Yeah, it's an evolving strategy, but we usually go after kid one and say, no, you can't tell her to hit you because then you're just going to use it as an excuse. So it's not cover. Like if she comes and attacks you, then she's in the wrong. But if you tell her to attack you, then you're in the wrong.
All right.
Now, yeah, self-ownership, but 2 years old, Like if someone says, oh, go do this, she's probably going to go do it.
Is that where she's at mentally, you think?
I think so, yeah. But, let's scale it up to, 16 and 14. 16-year-old says to the 14-year-old, hit me. Well, can the 14-year-old then hit the 16-year-old? Or self-ownership, should the 14-year-old say, no, that's bad advice, I'm not going to do it?
No, I think that establishes a contract that here you're going to hit me once and then that'll be it. That's a verbal contract.
Right, but I mean, who's ever done that except for trying to get into a fight? I'll give you the first hit, but the implication in that is that then it's going to become an actual fight. Like, give me your best shot.
In every movie I've ever seen, that's what happens. But I'm not saying that movies are necessarily like real life. Go ahead.
I suppose there are sadists and masochists, and they can have an agreement, a contract, complete with safe word, whatever that's going to be, like maybe covefe or how do you say that?
Covfeve, maybe? I'm not sure.
That's his safe word. All right, so I think we're near the end of the movie, and Jeremiah, you've already sort of talked about this scene that was foreshadowed and called back later, where they're trapped in a net with a whole school of grouper with this industrial fishing boat, and I think Dory is trapped in there, and Nemo comes up with the idea of how they can save her, and of course the whole school of fish, and it's by working together collectively. And it kind of weirded me out a little bit because it was. I'm trying to think of what message is that telling kids? Like, oh, you all have to work together collectively, like the collective, socialism.
But I think you got it right in your comment, in your note here, Daniel.
Right.
Working together without even trying. And that's
right.
The voluntary cooperation in pursuing your own self-interest through voluntary means benefits everybody.
Right, because all of the fish were in the net captured and just
they
coordinate.
All had an interest.
Yeah, they all had an interest in getting out, and they all volunteered to do it. But I'm just wondering if that nuance that the three of us can see might be lost on a 4-year-old.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it can be interpreted. It could very easily be interpreted in the more problematic way. I agree.
I agree. I don't have any exact evidence, but I could see how it could be misinterpreted or interpreted any number of ways. I don't know what the original intent was, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I might plug this in 10 seconds earlier. Circle gets the square.
What?
Whenever someone says I agree, then I say circle gets the square.
Is that going to be your new tagline?
That's from Hollywood Squares
Catchphrase?
back in the 80s.
Oh, I know. Is that going to be a thing that you're going to say now? Because I've been wanting you to have a catchphrase. I'm just wondering.
That's a terrible one, so might as well, We'll put it on some merch. We'll make that available for sale on the site.
Actual Anarchy. Circle gets a square.
ActualAnarchy.com. Everyone, circle gets the square. All right, so
I think we've come to the end of our note, yeah.
Is there anything that we haven't touched on that you'd like to cover, Jeremiah, regarding the movie? Any scenes that maybe we should talk about a little bit?
I think we've been pretty comprehensive. There's two little things we didn't really talk about, but I don't know really how to dig in deeper. But it was the jellyfish and the anglerfish. Those are two little scenes that we didn't really delve into too much.
Okay, I'll add one more, and then we can do our winding down the show. So those two things, and I want to talk about the seagulls and them all saying mine, mine, mine,
yeah.
mine, mine, mine. So let's first go with jellyfish. So what's your bid on the jellyfish?
I'm not sure I have a deeper point there, but that was the scene where they, instead of going through the trench like the sardines told them to, Dory had forgotten that they said that, so they ended up going over the trench, and they were a school of jellyfish descended upon them, and Dory just started bouncing around because it was fun, and Marlin's like, don't do that, and she ends up getting stung real bad, and he has to save her, and then with the anglerfish, they were trying to use its light to see what was on that mask that the fisherman had dropped, and so that was a key moment because they had to figure out, she had to remember what was on there, and it said, because it was the address of the guy. And so she was able to, by that point, she was starting to kind of like, and you could see throughout the movie, she starts to, and she even explicitly says it at one point, her memory is improving as she's spending time with Marlin. And so she's able to remember what's on there, on the mask.
Hey, Sherman, 42 Wallaby Way, Sydney.
Yeah.
See, Robert remembers even.
Yeah.
She says it like 20 times in the movie or more, I don't know.
Well, and Jeremiah knows every line, so
pretty much.
He knew that one already. Do you think that is another example of people, or not people, but the characters pushing themselves beyond what they previously thought their limits were?
Oh yeah, definitely. Marlin saving Dory. It's just another one of those moments. And also, Marlin was very brave in distracting the anglerfish while Dory tried to read the mask. He probably never would have thought that he would be in that situation. Trying to distract this monstrous, scary fish.
Yeah, and I think even Dory herself, she didn't think she'd remember, but because of the intensity and the importance of remembering it, like something clicked in her to actually be able to hold on to it. So she even went beyond what she thought she was capable of.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and the story of Marlin having these adventures becomes a story in the movie where it gets repeated and amazing of it, and it becomes a thing where then the pelican knows to find Nemo and to tell him, and he's inspired. And that was a nice moment in the movie where this timid, worried, neurotic clownfish basically throws caution to the wind, and he has a thing that he has to accomplish, and it's saving his son, and he'll do whatever it takes. It's a really great message.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and speaking of message, like you were just saying, the communication gets out there, right? All these exploits. And there's even foreshadowing of that when Marlin is taking Nemo to school. He's like, oh, yeah, I'll be sure to tell you all about the sharks and the sea turtles that are 100 years old that I might meet someday. Or I forget the context of it, but, of course, that ends up being what literally happens within the story. And he never expected that. That was also foreshadowing.
Right.
Which, now that I brought us back to that scene, what did you guys think about the seahorse's parenting style? Because he smacks the little seahorse who's like H2O intolerant, like, but he like smacks him.
The little nerd kid with all the allergies.
Yeah,
he hits him.
Yeah, he hits him. I mean, it's like a smack on the back of the head kind of hit. It's not like I'm gonna brain you kind of hit. But
what was the context? Like, you're dumb. Like you did.
Like, don't say that, or get over here.
I don't remember exactly what it was.
Oh, was he making fun of, or was he asking him about the fin or something?
I think that was it. Yeah. He asked him about the fin, and the dad's like, we don't talk about things like that, or something smacks him.
Yeah, that's not cool.
No.
Yeah, I'm not a fan.
Yeah.
It didn't stand out enough for me to bring it up, but I'm glad you did.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always a matter of degree. I mean, I don't think that it's necessarily like the worst type of aggressive violence. No. It's like aggressive violence light.
When we have to remember too, these principles don't really apply. They can't really apply the same way to kids that they do to adults, because kids are not adults. So there's some areas, and that's one of those aspects of the theory that needs to be fleshed out more. But the whole idea of grabbing a kid by the arm to stop him from like running off or whatever. These are kinds of things that would be like inappropriate or maybe even NAP violations if it was an adult doing it to another adult. But when it's a kid, it's different because you have to.
Right, like you're in a supermarket and we need to go, so come on, as opposed to, well, I'm just going to leave you in the supermarket or something. That's
right.
Well, I think
the way, but.
Yeah, I think I leave you in the supermarket is almost a death sentence. I think that was a point Steph had made in some of his conversations. Because to a kid, they take everything literal. And so, wait, you're going to leave me here in this place that's not my home, and you're not going to be here? You, the person who provides everything for me?
Right. Yeah.
So a kid might think, they're telling me they're going to leave me here to die because they're leaving me at the grocery store.
Right.
And Jeremiah, that's also a good point that you brought up related to it needs to be a little bit more fleshed out because like there's the whole age of consent thing. Mm-hmm. Like there was a recent story I just saw the other day where there was this 25-year-old teacher, and she's a bit of a looker, but she was sleeping with 2 or 3 of her students, 16 and 17 years old. She's like 9 years older than them, and I guarantee with 99% certainty that those 3 kids are pleased as punch that this happened. But she's lost her job. There's like she's been arrested. There's like going to be a criminal situation. And I'm pretty sure a 16, 17-year-old kid most likely has the capacity to make that decision to consent. I think it's a little bit weird in that there's this authority of being a school teacher, but that's a government thing. I mean, it's not a private property Ancapistan situation. There would be no like authority per se, except for accepted authority. Like you follow what I'm saying. We talked about this with Kenny on the last episode, Robert.
Sure.
But yeah, these are types of issues that do come up with children, and I think that also with people who don't have all their faculties, right? Like people with Alzheimer's or people with developmentally disabled. They can't necessarily memory loss like Dory. But people who can't necessarily make those decisions for themselves any longer, and I think that they would also be maybe not in the same category as children, but have some similar caveats related to them.
Well, and we like to treat people as individuals because that's all that exists. But government treats people as collectives and makes a decision, and then one size fits all. So the arbitrary drinking age is 21, and the arbitrary smoking age is 18, and the arbitrary consent age is 18, and driving a car. They make these arbitrary decisions based on whatever, and you got all kinds of messed up situations because of it.
Yeah, and that makes me recall that states used to be able to decide what the drinking age would be, and we're in Washington State, and it's been 21 for ever since I can recall. But it used to be 18 in Idaho, just across the border, and I believe that this played out with the federal government saying we're going to withhold highway funds from any state who doesn't change to 21. So they sort of like forced the hand of any state that was different. And, it's all government, so I can't agree with any of it. But this whole strong-arming tactic, especially after they've gotten a state sort of relying on the federal funds for the roads and other programs, it seems like a dick move. That's another thing. That could be on a T-shirt for us. Actual Anarchy Podcast, dick move.
Yeah, we come across that quite a bit. It's not necessarily immoral, but it's a dick move. That happens a lot.
Right.
So anyway, that's pretty much our movie, folks. So Jeremiah, overall final impressions, and then we'll go to Robert and we'll close the show out.
Sure, yeah. Well, number one, it was fun talking to you guys. We drew a lot of depth out of this movie, that even more than I thought we would. Yeah, I think I pretty much covered, I guess, as far as just like general reasons that why it's like a top 5 movie for me, just to kind of throw a couple in there that I didn't go over. I think because I like being in movie review mode sometimes. The voice acting is incredible. Of course, Albert Brooks holds down the fort, and Ellen DeGeneres, you can just tell how much fun she's having with that thing, and nobody was more excited than her that they decided to do a sequel and that she got to star in it. And so, and really all the voice acting, Crush stands out. I'm actually not sure who plays him, but and I think Andrew Stanton wrote and directed it, and I believe he also I'm pretty sure he was directed Monsters Inc. And I believe he also wrote and directed WALL-E, which is another brilliant movie. And
he was the voice of Crush.
Oh, was he? Oh, okay. I knew it was somebody like that. I believe it was actually his son who did Squirt too, or the son of somebody. But yeah. So and I talked about how awesome the screenplay is. I think just when rewatching it today, I noticed a few things that I think part of the reason that these Pixar movies are so good is they go by a lot of the same rules and conventions, and they incorporate ideas that that you just see in regular film. It's not like this is animated, so it's a totally different set of rules. It's like, no, it's they use the way that they frame some of the shots in the tank, and just that whole aspect of the dentist office, like how they make it so tense and terrifying for the fish. And the way that I love early on also when Marlin is chasing after the boat and he's just a lone fish in this vast ocean. He's just sticking his head up out of the water, and there's this really dramatic piano music, and it's just a really affecting scene. And of course, they always start the movie out with one of these really sad, moments that
massive tragedy in all these Pixar movies. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Like in Up, you're like crying after you're
they're always getting murdered and dying, and Up is you're just tears in the first 15 minutes.
Right. Yeah. And so all those aspects, and it's just a very funny movie, and it really runs the gamut, and so there you go.
Do you recommend it as a Father's Day movie?
Yeah, it's one of the best that I can think of as a Father's Day movie.
Would you show it to your children? What age?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't think they'd have to be too old. Maybe, I don't know. I'm probably not a good person to answer these questions, but maybe, I don't know, 6, 7.
Okay. Well, we'll ask Daniel here in a second, but I'll give my little recap. Yeah, it's an excellent, well-acted, well-directed, well-written, especially with all the callbacks and the foreshadowing. It really feels like a tight, cohesive story. Far superior to the, Hollywood likes to, they're making an animated fish movie? Well, we need to make an animated fish movie, and we're going to have Will Smith in it and whatever. Yeah, but this is far superior to the Shark Tale movie with Will Smith. A very good example of, he had a reason to chase after his, to rescue his child, and I'm a huge fan of, saving somebody that needs help.
He's going all Liam Neeson, getting his kid
Sure.
back.
Yeah, why not?
I never made that comparison, but yeah, that's true.
That's right.
I have a very particular
save your kid, man.
Finding Nemo, he's been taken.
Good movie. Highly recommend it. Good Father's Day movie. Good example of a father who cares and who will go to any length to rescue their child. Daniel, would you show this to your children, and at what age?
I can and do and would. So I got a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. They're almost 4 and 2. But we've had this movie probably for 3 or 4 months. So a 1.5-year-old, 17 months, 18 months, has been watching this, and she likes it.
Nice.
Wasn't scared at any point by the sharks or anything?
Oh, yeah. The sharks scared her because there's the whole scene when he smells the blood and starts chasing him through the boat. the old, relic boat, and then they run into the mines. Which we didn't even talk about that. The mines being there from, war refuse.
Oh yeah.
But they're a little bit scared about that. But now that they've seen the movie, umpteen times, because that's what you do with kids. As soon as it ends, you play it again, and you know all the songs. If there are any parents out there, I do highly, highly recommend that you avoid the show called Tro, which is about a donkey. There are it's on Netflix, and there's 3 or 4 episodes in a row in each episode that you watch. So you get the theme song at the beginning, and then 2 minutes of show, and then theme song again, and then the theme song again, 2 minutes of show, theme song again. So you watch a half hour and you listen to the theme song 12 times.
Brutal.
Wow.
Yeah, so that one's brutal. But as far as Finding Nemo, I think it's pretty good for most kids. There aren't too many messages that I have any real challenge with, other than the perception of the working together in a collective at the end. But I try to have that conversation with my kids and say, this is actually them, choosing to do this in their own self-interest, and it works out for everybody in the end that they did this. So I try to present things in an ANCAP way to the kids.
Very good, Daniel.
Yeah. So overall, 2 thumbs up, or what was our rating system going to be?
Well, we stole the Weekly Planet's best movie, worst movie ever, but we can't keep stealing that. Even though that's not their intellectual property, I think we should come up with our own thing.
Yeah, we should be a little bit more unique.
Yeah.
All right, so this might be a little bit contentious, but we could say black or gold.
I like that.
Okay, well, let's definitely
gold would be the good one, and black would be the bad one.
Why is the black got to be the bad one?
It's black movie for me, totally black.
Really? You don't like the Nemo?
What, black means good, right?
Oh, well, that's implying gold is bad. You got something against gold?
Yeah, gold's terrible. Hard money, it's the worst. Fiat forever, baby. Long live the Fed. What? Come on, you guys aren't saying it.
Yeah, it's like opposite day. Jeremiah, you joined us on opposite day, so thanks for coming out.
Oh, great. So I've just been promoting collectivism and socialism this whole time.
That's right. Good movie.
Stalin would approve of the Barracuda murdering 399 of the 400, because then it's just a statistic, right?
That's right.
Not a tragedy there.
That's right.
All right. Well, maybe
thanks for coming along, Jeremiah. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you very much. We might have to rework this black and gold thing and figure out which one's the good one, which one's not. But hey, guys, we're doing the train wreck at the end here. It's what we do. It's been the Actual Anarchy podcast. You can find more about us at actualanarchy.com. We also run readrothbard.com. We've got over 450 quotes now on the actualanarchy.com/quotes. We've got a bunch of Amazon links, which our friend here, Jeremiah, actually used to purchase his microphone. So thank you very much for doing that. We made like $2.50, $3. So thank you.
I'm a supporting listener of the Actual Anarchy podcast.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. The next step is to move up to our Patreon, where you can see video of yourself on the show. No, I'll give it to you anyway. But we have our Patreon is patreon.com/readrothbard.
I'm narcissistic enough to pay for video of myself. I can do that.
And we've got a couple of other cool things in the works for everyone, so stay tuned for that. But you can find more about this episode, our Father's Day special about Finding Nemo, at actualanarchy.com/27. And so thank you guys very much. Happy Father's Day. Oh, and one more sneak preview thing. We're going to do Batman, Dark Knight, coming out this week as well. So we're going to do 2 episodes this week. We're recording that tomorrow night. And it's sort of timely because Adam West, the original campy Batman, just died at, I think, the age of 88. Very sad. But we had been alluding to doing a Batman for a few weeks now, and I think the time is right. So we have a special guest coming to us from Australia, of all places, and, because we were just talking about Australia here. Mm-hmm. So it'll tie in really nicely. We're going to do the Australian weekend at the Actual Anarchy podcast.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Take care.
All right. Good day, mates.
the Chipmunks. CHIPMUNK. We're the Chipmunks. Guaranteed to brighten your day. Do 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 do.